Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier with a very special subscriber requested rant. Bailey Mack, good guy from Chi-Town, has requested that I answer the question he poses, which is, do I think AEW should run Monday nights opposite of Monday Night Raw? Good question, Bailey. So here we go. Or how would they do? I'm not sure if you said should they or how would they do. Let's take both topics and what would be the results. So, three-tiered question. Should AEW run Monday nights? Will they? That's probably a bigger question. Will they? Should they? Will they? Would it be good? And what would happen? And what would be the results? Well, first off, should they? I don't think they should. Will they? I don't think they will. But let's get into why I don't think they will and why I don't think they should. I think there's too many things that AEW has done, including being on TNT and TBS, that already kind of make them feel like the reincarnation of WCW. You see what I'm saying? Like if TNT, it wasn't the network for AEW, say if it was ABC or HBO, it would have less in common with with WCW. But just the mere fact that they're on the former channels, I tried to fix everything and it just made it worse. Get this fucking tumor out of here. God. So the whole thing is, I don't think they should. And if they will, I will say no. I don't think they will, because I think they would have done it already. I mean, if they were going to go on Monday nights against Monday Night Raw, they would have done that from the get-go, I think. So basically, they worked very hard. If people want to give them credit or not, I'm talking about AEW, Tony Khan, all the guys there. Yes, the Young Bucks, the Omegas, the Moxleys, the Jerichos, and yes, the Cody before he left. But you have to give that whole roster, and Tony Khan and Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and Excalibur, the whole goddamn AEW crew, Dr. Britt Baker, you have to give them all credit, okay, for winning Wednesday nights. So if you want to say, oh, they only have less than 1 million viewers a week or whatever the fuck, well, that's, about 800,000 more than you or I have for anything we're doing, right? So the point is, they worked too hard to establish themselves on Wednesday nights. They defeated a WWE project or WWE show, NXT. So basically the point is, they worked so hard for 2 or 3 years to establish AEW's Wednesday nights, 8 to 10. Why would they change that now? So that's to say, would they remove the weekly Dynamite show and put it on Monday? I don't think they should. I don't think they will. I don't think that would be a good idea. They've worked too hard to establish themselves on Wednesday nights. Maybe a different question would be, and I don't think that Bailey even asked about specific shows, just AEW in general. If they took Rampage off Friday, which is kind of this weird thing where it's like, it doesn't feel like it's canon. Like the only episode really there's been a few good episodes of Rampage, like that Moxley match, the bloodbath match, and there's been some good matches on Rampage. I think they had Chris Jericho beat Kenny Omega in the very first match of Rampage for the Impact title. So there's been some interesting stuff on Rampage. But the big one we're still talking about is from last August, 9 or 10 months ago, CM Punk coming back to town. Has AEW Rampage on Friday nights from 10 to 11 typically ever reached that level since? Probably not. I think it might be more. And so basically, Raw on the East Coast is 8 to 10. Rampage is 10 to 11. You have to switch the channel. It's two different companies. But a lot of people, and I'm not making fun, but a lot of people make their Friday nights like wrestling night now, which was a couple of years ago, that would be unexpected. Like people sitting around watching wrestling on a Friday night at home. But because of all the situations that have happened that we don't have to go into with our world, it suddenly became cool to sit home and watch TV. So in that scenario, I think it's quite possible that, if AEW want to be frisky, they could take Rampage off of Friday and put it over on Mondays. Or if they were to do a whole new, totally fresh show from the start, like a AEW Monday Night Fun or whatever you want to call it. About Monday Night Mark, AEW Monday Night Mark. But how would I do this, and what would be the ramifications be? If I were AEW, I think a big part of it would be, I think it would be really dumb to go 3 hours against Monday Night Raw. I think that 3 hours, the WWE has a hard time filling those 3 hours, as has been evidenced for the last 8 or 10 years since they've done 3 hours. I think AEW would find themselves in that same position. If you build up storylines and matches and feuds, for 3 or 4 months, like AEW has the luxury of doing with their 4 pay-per-view schedule a year, then it's easy. But to have a 3-hour weekly grind, that's tough. You know what I mean? So I think that's why we've seen that the excitement of Raw has diminished. So for AEW, here's a good counter. Why not? You might be saying, well, do 2 hours, do 1 hour. No, here's the thought. Do an hour and a half. If AEW did 9 to 10:30 East Coast time against the Raws 8 to 11, like right in the heart, like the heart of the show, right in the middle, like 9 to 10:30, or I guess you could do 8:30 to 10, but a 90-minute chunk, you know what I mean, could really fuck things up. Especially, I think the move would be to go 9 to 10:30. Now, the 90-minute wrestling format is pretty interesting. The biggest successful thing, as longtime fans will remember, and if you have access for younger fans, you can watch these. Probably the best 90-minute wrestling show ever was Saturday Night's Main Event. And that 90-minute show, it's actually quite good. Like, that's a nice runtime. I'm trying to think. I think the In Your Houses were 2 hours. Clash of Champions were normally 2.5 hours, sometimes 3. Pay-per-views used to be 3. So I think the only show that I can, and I guess the old Memphis wrestling was 90 minutes. See, you thought you were going to catch me, but you didn't. I remember that too. Saturday Night's Main Event used to be 90 minutes, was a lot of fun. So just enough wrestling for 90 minutes. You get your skits, you get some good matches, and then you're out of there. 4 or 5 matches on a Saturday Night's Main Event. Sometimes, I think the average was about 4 matches, but sometimes you had 5. I think that could be really good. AEW 90-minute show. But if that were to be the case, if they were to do that, I would still advise, if they were to go Mondays head to head with Raw, I think you'd have to ditch Friday nights because it's just too much. I think, but I mean, there's probably fans out there 12. I'm not being age biased, but when you're a younger guy or a girl these days, if you like wrestling, you'll watch it all, right? So what would the results be if they were to do this? I'm now, just going, not just saying 90 minutes like my idea, but if they were to do an AEW Monday night show at all, what would the results be? I think the WWE, week to week, AEW might win the first week or the second week, or maybe the both for the ratings. But I mean, once you do all the analytics and all the fucking numbers and the fucking stress test and the whatever the fuck they call it, the what's that called? Jericho, I'm tired. What's that thing that he calls it? The king, God. the peak, the target audience thing. Ugh. The demo god, the demographics. If you do all the, I couldn't remember the fucking demographics word. If you do the demographics, you could say that either side won, basically. Like, you can manipulate the demographics of ratings pretty much to make either side, AEW or WWE, the winner. I think short term it would be good for both AEW and WWE. I mean, I think if you had two wrestling, here's why. This would not be for the fucking casuals, these hypothetical casuals. This would be for people like me that are kind of drifting away from all of wrestling, to be honest with you. If you were to have a pretty interesting Monday Night War type thing going on, I think a lot of the fencing fans who kind of tune in and tune out, but don't tune in regularly all the time, I think they'd be kind of more provoked and intrigued. Smart marks, basically. I don't know if you're going to get the casuals, these mysterious casual fans. I'm still waiting for someone to show me a photo ID of a casual wrestling fan. I don't think there are any more, to be honest, or not many. But I think you could make a buzz if you had these two wrestling shows going on at the same time, AEW and WWE. Now, short term, I think it would be good for the wrestling business, the pro wrestling business, and AEW and even WWE, believe it or not. Because I think it's been proven that Vince McMahon, at least, gets more competitive fire when he's challenged. You know what I mean? So I think it would be good for wrestling. Long term, I don't know if it would be good. In fact, I think it might not be. Because I think one thing that happened with WCW was they burned through so many big matches. Goldberg versus Sting, Goldberg versus DDP. All these matches were shown. DDP versus Sting. All these matches were shown one way or another on Nitro. Goldberg versus Hogan. And I think AEW, their reaction would be like, oh, let's take Switchblade Jay White and put him against Hangman Page on week 1. Let's take a returning Kenny Omega and put him in there with Darby Allin on the second week of this Monday night AEW show. That would be their instinct to try and hot shot their shows. But I think the fans would kind of burn out on it. A guy that I used to go to college with said that a big part of pro wrestling was anticipation, like suspense, like the lulls. And I think that's one thing that, Eric Bischoff in 83 Weeks talks about his little, his little acronym there. Suspense is a big part of this wrestling world, what makes things work. And I think when you're trying to outdo a competitor on the other channel at the same time, like Nitro and Raw used to do, it's very easy to burn out your wrestlers, overexpose the top people, etc. So long and the short of it is, I don't think it would be a good idea for AEW in the long term. In the short term, it would pop a rating. But I think the way that they do things now, it's almost like a judo contest. It's like they're both kind of, you know what I mean? But Vince, WWE has fucked with AEW a few times, and I'm sure there's been a few reach arounds, but it seems to be a kinder, gentler wrestling war. So let me see if I answered all these questions from the 80s or 90s in comparison. Should they? No. Will they? No. What would happen if? I just told you it would be great for a few months or a year or two, and then it would burn out. And who would win? I guess I didn't answer that one. I hate to say it, but WWE would probably win in the long term, quite honestly, just because they just, WWE and Vince, they don't like to lose over there. So unless Vince's health took a real decline, and I'm not hoping for that, obviously, but I mean, no one lives forever. Unless Vince couldn't really put his all into this show, and I don't know about Hunter, Hearst Helmsley, Triple H, Levesque, as Meltzer calls him, his real name. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like WWE has a history of doing well in the long term, obviously, against Nitro, of course, TNA, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, like 2011 or so. Tried for a little while on Monday nights. I think it's just so cement. It's like if the USFL or the XFL try to do Monday Night Football. Yes, Monday Night Football is not what it used to be. It's no longer on ABC. It's on ESPN, etc. But there's some traditions that even if they're waning, it's hard to like knock them out of their socks, so to speak. So I hope this has answered your questions, Bailey Mack. I'm extremely tired, but I took this time to answer your question. And like I said, I can't remember your fucking exact question. Should they? What would happen if? Blah, 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 fuck. How could it work? I did my best to answer your questions. And you should all go to my website, MikeMessier.com, buy my books, and do all these wonderful things, Mike Messier.